Hello students. Students, today we are starting chapter number 10, the sermon at Benares. The sermon means moral preaching, or we can say a speech or a lecture on religious or moral subjects. So in this chapter we will read about Gautam Buddha, about his early life, and also about his first sermon that he preached at Benares. So students, now let's start. Gautam Buddha began life as a prince named Siddharth Gautama in northern India. Gautam Buddha was a prince and his actual name was Siddharth Gautam, and he lived in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures, and 4 years later he returned home to marry a princess. When he was 12 years old, he was sent away for the schooling and he got studies in Hindu sacred scriptures. And after 4 years, when he returned home, he got married to a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as befitted royalty. Befitted means appropriately. After marriage, they had a son and they lived very happily for the 10 years and they spent a royal life. At about the age of 25, the prince, heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world. Till the age of 25, the prince was always shielded from the sufferings of the world. He was always preserved, he was always saved from the sufferings. While out hunting, chanced upon a sick man, until he had met to a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. Alms means charity. Now, these things brought a turn in his life when he met to a sick man, an aged man, and then he saw a funeral procession, and finally he saw a monk begging for the charity. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. Now, he was so much moved that he went out from the house. He wanted to seek enlightenment. He wanted to seek enlightenment that was concerning the sorrows he had witnessed, he had seen. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat down under a peepal tree. Now, he wandered for 7 years, but he didn't get enlightenment. Then, at last, he sat down under a peepal tree where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. Then he sat there under the peepal tree, and also he made the solemn promise that until he got enlightenment, he would not stand up from there. Enlightened, after 7 days, he renamed the tree the Bodhi tree, the tree of wisdom, and began to teach and to share his new understandings. Now, he got enlightenment after 7 days, and then he renamed the tree under which he had sat. He renamed the tree as Bodhi tree. Bodhi tree means the tree of wisdom. And then he started to teach the people and to share his new understandings. As now his life had took a new turn. Now he had become more wisdom, more wise. He had become the wisest person. And now he started teaching the people. He started praying, and also he started sharing his new understandings. At that point, he became known as the Buddha, the awakened or the enlightened. Now, he was known as Buddha. From that day, he was called Buddha. The Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Benares, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. And on the river Ganges, he preached his first sermon and at the city of Benares. That sermon has been preserved and is given here. Still, till this time, that sermon has been preserved and it is given here. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Inscrutable means something which cannot be understood. Now, this sermon shows the Buddha's wisdom about about one suffering that cannot be easily understood. And this is about a Kissa Gotmi that we are going to read now. Kissa Gotmi had an only son and he died. Now this is a story about Kissa Gotmi. She had an only son and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine, and the people said she has lost her senses, the boy is dead. Now, she was not ready to understand that her son has died. Still, she was in grief, and she carried the child to all her neighbors, and she was asking them for the medicine. But the people said that she had lost her senses because her son was dead, and still she was demanding for the medicines. At length, Kisa Gautami met a man who replied to her request. I cannot give thee medicine, thee means you, for thy child, thy means yours. These are the archaic words, the words that are used in the olden English. So he said, I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can. Now, at last she met a man who replied to her request, as she was requesting everyone for the medicines for the dead child, but everybody was refusing. At last she met a man, and he said that he cannot give her the medicine for her child, but he knew a physician who could treat her child. And the girl said, pray tell me, who is it? And the man replied, go to Sakyamuni the Buddha. Now the girl said, pray tell me, pray means please tell me who the physician was. Then man replied that you just go to Sakyamuni the Buddha. They called Buddha as Sakyamuni. Kisa Gautami repaired to the Buddha and cried. So she went to Buddha and then she started crying. Repaired means here went to. She went to Buddha and cried, Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy. Now she again demanded for the medicine that would cure her child, cure her son. The Buddha answered, I want a handful of mustard seed. And when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added, the mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend. Now she demanded for the medicine from Buddha. Then Buddha answered her. He wanted a handful of mustard seeds. He wanted mustard seeds, and she became very much happy, and she promised that she would bring mustard seeds for him. But Buddha also further said that the mustard seed must be taken from the house where no one had lost a child, husband, parent, or friend. And then he also said that Buddha said that he wanted the mustard seeds from the house where no one had lost any near and dear ones. Poor Kissa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, here is mustard seed, take it. Now she went from the house to house. The people were also showing pity for her, and they said that they had mustard and she could take them. But when she asked, did a son or daughter, a father or mother die in your family? They answered her, alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. But as Buddha had said her that she would bring the mustard seeds from the house where no near or dear one had died, and when she asked about this question from the people, then they said that the livings are few in their houses, but the dead are many, as their near one and dear one had already died. Do not remind us of our deepest grief. And also they said that they are also in the deepest grief. They are also very much sad, and they told her not to remind them about that. And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. And she didn't find any house where no one near and dear one or beloved one had not died. Kissa Gautami became weary and hopeless. Weary means tired. Now she was very much tired, and also she was hopeless, and sat down at the wayside watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. Now She sat at the wayside and then she started watching the lights of the city, and she found that the lights were flickering up and they were extinguished. Mean in series they were flickering, and at one time they were flickering and another time they were extinguishing. At last the darkness of the night reigned everywhere. But at last she found that everywhere she could see the darkness. And she considered the fate of men, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. Now she realized that this is the fate of the men, that their lives flicker up and they are extinguished. Means the men are born and after spending their lives they die. And she thought to herself, how selfish I am in my grief. And then she started thinking about herself, that she was very much selfish as in her grief. Death is common to all, yet in this valley of desolation means an area which is filled with deep sorrow. There is a path that leads him to immortality who has surrendered all selfishness. And then she thought of herself, then she thought that she was very much selfish as she was crying for her dead child. As she came to know that death is common, just like the lights, as they are flickering and they are extinguishing. This is the same way of the reality of the life. Everyone is born, and after spending the life, one dies. Now she realized that death is common to all, and in this valley of desolation, in this area which is filled with deepest sorrow, there is a path that leads him to immortality. As life is mortal, man is mortal, it is sure that man will die, but there is a path that is the path of immortality who has surrendered all selfishness. And she realized that only that one is immortal who will surrender all the selfishness. The Buddha said, the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. And also Buddha said that mortals means the life of mortals, mortals those bound to die. The life of mortals means when one is born, that is compulsory that the man will die. Then the life of mortals, the life of the people is very much troubled and it is brief and combined with pain. And there are happiness and sorrow at the same time in the life, for there is not any means by which those that have been born can avoid dying. And also, he said there are no means by which we can stop our death, because it is compulsory to come. After reaching old age, there is death. And when you spend all the stages of the life, there will be death. Of such a nature are living beings, and this is natural. This is natural with every human being. As ripe fruits are early in danger of falling, so mortals, when born, are always in danger of death. Now, here the Buddha compared the ripe fruits when they are ripened and they are in danger of falling. And so is the life of the human beings, because when they are born, surely they will die, and they are always in the danger of death, because death can come to them anytime. As all earthen vessels, all the pots made by the potter end in being broken. And the end of the pots is when they are broken. So is the life of mortals. So is the life of the human beings. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death, all are subject to death. And again he said, although the people are young and adult, both those are whether they are fools or they are wise, all all will die. All one day they will die, whether they are fool or whether they are wise, even they are young or adult, they will surely die one day. Of those who overcome by death depart from life. A father cannot save his son, nor kinsmen their relations. And then he said that those people who are overcome by death, they depart from the life, means they move from the life. As a father cannot save the life of his son. And a relative kinsman, the relatives cannot save the life of their relations. Mark. While relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply, one by one mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. Now, again, he said that the relatives are looking on their relatives, on the other relatives, and they are very much shocked. They are lamenting. They are crying very deeply on their death. But their their relatives are dying and they are weeping on them. Like just like an ox when it is died, when it is led to the slaughter. The life of the ox is also in trouble when it is led to the slaughter and it is killed. So the world is afflicted with death and decay. Afflicted means affected by sufferings, disease, or pain. So the world is affected by the disease or pain with death and decay. Therefore, the wise do not grieve, knowing the terms of the world. So he said again that only those people are the wisest one who are not full of grief, who because they know the terms of the world, who knows the reality of the life. Not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. When again he said that if you remain weeping or if you remain grieving every time, you are always sad, then you will never get the peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be the greater and his body will suffer. But on the contrary, your pain will be increased and your body will suffer the pains. Now, here he said that if you will keep on weeping and you will always be sad, you will be full of grief, you will never get a peace of mind, but on the contrary, your pain will be increased and your body will start suffering the pains. He will make himself sick and pale, yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. Now, if you keep on weeping on the dead people, then it will make you sick, it will make you pale. Even the dead persons will not be saved by your lamentation, by your weeping or crying, or showing by the expressions of sorrow. They will not be saved. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation and complaint and grief. And if you want the peace in your mind, then you have to draw out the arrow of lamentation, the arrow of sorrows and complaint and griefs. You have to bring it out. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed will obtain peace of mind. And then he said that those people who have overcome this grief or complaints, lamentation, they will really obtain the peace of mind, they will get the peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed. And only those person will be blessed and those will be free from sorrow who would have overcome all the sorrows. So, students, in this chapter, we have read about the first sermon that was given by Gautam Buddha at Benares, and it was his first sermon. And in this sermon, he told about the reality of life, and he said that it is sure that the death will come to the all the human beings. So there is no need to lament over the death of anyone, because it would no by doing so you will never get the peace of mind. On the contrary, you will your pains will be increased by it. So students, this is all about the chapter. I hope you have understood. Okay students, goodbye and have a nice day.